Okay, guys, while my vCenter is on, okay, guys, regarding tomorrow's practical session, what would be the ideal time for you guys? Is it okay with the morning session?
Yeah, sure. When you say morning session, what time is it?
Indian Standard Time from morning 8 to 12. Is it okay?
It'll be 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, around 1:30, 2 o'clock.
Midnight? Is it midnight there?
It's 9:30 now. So 9:30 is 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in the morning, you mean, right?
Yeah,
IST.
morning. IST, Indian Standard Time in the morning.
Yeah, it should be 2 p.m. around 2 p.m. here. So it should be alright.
Okay? Is it okay with everyone?
Mujib, tomorrow you are taking the class?
It will be the practical session for them.
Okay, but you will be taking the class, or there is no WebEx session?
Like they are asking me for assistance. So can we provide WebEx so that if they have any doubts, they can.
I'm asking, like, see, do you require WebEx session or not required?
If we have WebEx section, then we can have interaction. If they require any assistance, I'll be able to provide.
Okay, what time you required? Because see, we have some schedules tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, if you have to tell in advance so that, like, you should not disturb my existing schedule.
Okay, so I'm thinking about morning 8 to 12. Morning 8 a.m. to 12.
Okay, 8 may not be possible. Okay, I'll give you 8:30. It may be 8:45.
Okay.
Okay, up to 11:50 you can take it. 8 o'clock I have half an hour session. 12 o'clock I have half an hour session. Some demo sessions were on.
Okay.
Okay, so is it okay?
From 8:45 you're talking about.
8:30. I think 8:30 means like maybe 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I can schedule 8:45 to 11:50.
11:50 or 11:15?
11:50, 50.
50. Okay, fine. 8:45 to 11:50.
Yeah, 8:40 I can say.
Sure.
So I'll schedule it and I'll send it to you.
All right then. All right.
Thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
So what's happening with today's class? Will there be any today or not?
No. Once my vCenter is up, we are going to start the class. Okay. Fine. I'm just waiting for my vCenter to be up. Once with the services, we are up with the services, then we are ready.
Isn't there anyone else online? Are there other people online or?
Yeah. Waiting for this service to start. Noise. Is everyone on mute? Yep.
Did you spoke to the management regarding the practical tomorrow?
Yep, guys. Yes, we have a WebEx session, okay, starting at 8:45 till 11:50 Indian Standard Time. Okay, I'll be available for assistance, so I'll be available here, not to worry, and you can continue with your practicals tomorrow.
So when you say 8:45, what do we do? Just log in as usual as we do
Yeah,
now?
you log in at 8. You can log in by 8:30. Fine. And 8:45, I'll be joining the WebEx session. And you require any assistance, I'll be able to provide over the WebEx. Fine.
Obviously, your servers will be available as well for us to
Yes,
log in.
absolutely. By 8:30, the servers will be available.
Okay. So we can log into your servers and then we can ask you questions on the WebEx.
Yes.
All right.
Mujib, after this class, the servers will be on? After
Yeah,
this
they are
class?
on. They are on there.
Okay, we can practice today also.
Yes. You can continue with your practice.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now it's started. Let me get connected to my vCenter as well.
Mujib, actually, even I installed vCenter server on my this one, mine
Okay.
one. If we can try that one also on 30 machine on 30.
On
0.1.30, yeah, on 30.
What is the name of it?
I think VC Prabhakar or something. VM vCenter something is there, no? Might be there.
This one? Is it yours?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Mujib, it's online Prabhakar vCenter is server something is there
Okay.
on 30.
This is for
Okay, fine. It got connected now. This one will be right. Okay, fine. Guys, we have seen the cluster, right? Have we seen the creation of cluster? Or you want me to show from the beginning? Guys,
So
you want
from
me
beginning, if
to?
you can.
Okay, yes, we'll do that. Let's do that. So again,
One more thing, Mujib, this one enhanced vMotion is also pending.
yep, I remember it. I remember it. Okay. Now let me create a cluster. Guys, cluster can be created on a data center. Fine. I have my production at Hyderabad data center. I'm creating a cluster. Right click, new cluster. In given name, name can be based on your department, or it can be a production cluster, so on and so forth. Now, the vSphere clustering service has two features. The one is vSphere HA, the other one is vSphere DRS. If you turn on vSphere HA, then this cluster would be an HA cluster. If you turn on DRS, then this cluster would be a DRS cluster. If you turn on both, then this cluster has both the features HA and DRS. I'll show you DRS at a later stage, but let us see, turn on vSphere HA, click on next. Now, the first thing what HA does, it provides high availability against host failures. That is done by enabling host monitoring. This is the default setting. We do not change it. If you uncheck this box, then the host will not be monitored. That means they'll not be able to perform failover in the event of host failure. So do not uncheck this. This is the default setting that is checked, and you should check this box. And here comes the admission control. We knew that admission control is the amount of resources we use to start virtual machines in the event of failovers. And default policy is to enable admission control. And here you find two types of policies. Host failures the cluster tolerates. Now, in a cluster, minimum hosts required are 2 and the maximum is 32. Now, here, if you mention the number of hosts the cluster tolerates, based on it, the HA cluster is going to preserve the resources. The second policy, we can set certain amount of resources as reserved. For example, if I go with percentage, I'm saving or I'm reserving 25% of the resources of CPU and 25% of memory resources as a failover capacity. VMware recommends to go with the percentage rather than going with the host failures. Here, 25% of CPU and memory is sufficient for my infrastructure. However, this may differ from infrastructure to infrastructure. in your infrastructure, maybe 25% of CPU is good, but you may require more memory. You can increase or decrease the requirement based on your infrastructure, and by default, 25% is the resources which are being saved. Click on next. Here comes the virtual machine options. What HA does, if a host fails, virtual machines will also fail. But the failed virtual machines are getting restarted on some other ESXi host within specific time, that is within 3 minutes. And now here, the VM restart priority, the cluster default setting is medium. That means every virtual machine is considered to be equal and the priority is medium. However, explicitly for a specific virtual machine, you can give a high priority or a low priority based on that particular application running on that virtual machine. However, the default setting is medium. Now, host isolation. Now, we discussed that host gets isolated. Suppose when the management network is down, management network is responsible for heartbeat networks as well. If that is down, then the host gets isolated. So if host gets isolated, what to be done? We'll say that leave power on. We are not changing the power setting, and we want the virtual machines to be powered on. Okay. So these are the default settings. We do not change these settings. Click on next. Now the second thing what HA can do is that provide high availability against virtual machines or the guest operating system failure. That is done by VM monitoring, and I also informed you that this is disabled in production environment, but because without knowing the reason why virtual machine went down, we do not want to restart it. So that's the reason why it is disabled. If you want to enable it, then you need to drop down and click on or select VM monitoring only. Now, HA also has the capability of restarting the failed applications. All right. However, for that functionality, the application has to be developed in order to support vSphere HA. If that application supports vSphere HA, then you can choose this option, VM and application monitoring. However, I'm disabling it. Fine. We click on next. Now this is EVC, Enhanced vMotion Compatibility. This feature is common for HA as well as DRS. Enhanced vMotion Compatibility will make sure that vMotion occurs smoothly across different processors in your infrastructure. Guys, we discussed for vMotion, you need to have compatible CPUs, that means identical CPUs. However, in our infrastructures, we may use a different generation of processors in our infrastructure. Now, what EVC does is that it will make sure that vMotions can occur across different generation of processors. Let me take the example that suppose you have 3 generation processors available on your servers in your infrastructure, generation 1, generation 2, and generation 3. Normally, vMotion cannot occur across different generation of processors because you need to have identical CPUs. However, if you configure EVC in your cluster, then vMotion can occur across different generation of processors. Why? Because EVC is going to create a baseline. Let us say generation 1 features will be available on generation 2 CPUs as well as on generation 3 CPUs. If that's the case, which is common across all the CPUs, generation 1 features are common. So what EVC is going to do is that it is going to create a baseline of generation 1 processors, and because of that, your vMotion can occur smoothly. Fine. So here, one thing.
Hello?
Okay. So here, vMotion will occur smoothly if you enable EVC. However, EVC is for within the same family. That means if you have AMD hosts, then you need to go with only AMD hosts. If you have Intel hosts, then you need to go with only Intel hosts. You cannot mix the hosts of Intel CPUs with the hosts of AMD CPUs. If you have AMD CPUs, that too of different generation processors, then you can enable EVC and check this. Guys, if you see this, if I go with generation 1 as the baseline, then what are the processors which are supported for EVC is generation 1, generation 2, and generation 3, because it will create a baseline feature of generation 1 processors. If the baseline is generation 2, then only generation 2 and generation 3 can be a part of this cluster. Now, if I go with generation 3, then generation 3 will be the baseline. So generation 4 and the higher processors can be a part of this particular cluster. So if you have AMD hosts with different generation of processors, then you can enable EVC for AMD. The same way you can also enable EVC for Intel. Intel normally doesn't name their processors with generations. However, they name it with a code name like Merom generation, Nehlam, Penguin, Westmere, Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge in this way. So Merom would be the baseline, and if you have Merom as the baseline, then these are the compatible processors which can be a part of this EVC enabled cluster. However, I'm disabling this. Why? Because in my infrastructure, I have two exactly identical CPUs. I don't require EVC. However, in your infrastructure, if you have different generation of processors, you can utilize this feature called EVC Enhanced Immersion Compatibility. Now, if I click on next, this setting is also common for HA and DRS. This is something to do with swap file policy for virtual machines. Swap file, that is nothing but the file which has an extension .vswp. Now, that file is stored in the same directory as the virtual machine. Okay, you need to go with the default setting, and it is recommended. I'm not changing this policy. Click on next. So this is the entire summary of my cluster. Name is production. I've enabled HA. I've enabled admission control. I've reserved 25% of the resources as failover capacity. Virtual machine restart priority is medium. Host isolation response, leave forward on. HA VM monitoring is disabled, and EVC is also disabled. Click on finish. A cluster would be created. Okay. Now cluster means group of hosts. There are no hosts into it. I can add a host directly into a cluster. If you have already host in your data center, then just drag and drop into your cluster. Fine. So let me add a host directly here. Host is 10.0.1.20. Root. The first host is getting added to my cluster. Let me add the second host. Guys, when you add an ESXi host to HA cluster, an HA agent gets installed on every ESXi host, and it will start the FDM service and if the FDM agent. Okay, and we discussed that once host becomes a part of HA cluster, the cluster is called as FD, fault domain, and it is managed by the master host. Why? Because the host in cluster, HA cluster, will have master and slave relationship. Now, in a moment, we'll be able to see out of 1.20 and 1.30, which would be the master and which would be the slave. Once this host is added,
Mujib,
yes.
there's a question. Which machine or which host are you showing this practicals on? Can we connect to this one as well? 172.16.
Yes. Well, this is my physical ESXi. These are two my blade servers. These two are my blade servers. Okay. Now HA is being configured on both the hosts. We are seeing this in progress right now. In a moment, see guys, election is going on right now. Okay. Out of these two, one will be elected as a master. Fine. And I can see that in the configuration of my cluster, which one is my master and which are the hosts which are acting as slaves. Now, if I go to the summary of this cluster, if I click on cluster status here, you can see right now the master is 10.0.1.30 and the slave is 10.0.1.20. And guys, we also discussed that HA depends on two things. The first one is heartbeat network, which is handled by VM kernel port configured for management network, and it also depends on heartbeat data stores or data store heartbeats. So right now, if I click on heartbeat data stores, there are two data stores which are selected by default as heartbeat data stores. Okay, so if you see this VM13 shade 1 and shade 2, suppose your host has more than two data stores in your infrastructure, then only two data stores will be selected as heartbeat data stores, and they are selected randomly. And the criteria is the most latest data stores will be selected as heartbeat data stores. Okay, and if you click on VMs, right now there are three virtual machines which are protected, and there are seven virtual machines which are not protected. Okay, so the virtual machines which are running will be considered as protected virtual machines, and the virtual machines which are not running will not be considered as protected. Fine. Okay, so this is my HA cluster. We'll see the practical of HA cluster. That means the HA, what I told you, when a host fails, the virtual machines will get restarted and some of the resets I host within 3 minutes. However, I'll show you how to configure DRS cluster, guys. Now, the cluster is already created. If you want to enable DRS on it, just right click on Edit Settings. Now, if you turn on vSphere DRS, then this cluster will also become a DRS cluster. Once I click on it, guys, on the left-hand side, you find many options appearing. If I uncheck it, they are disappearing. Once I check it, they are appearing. These are all settings associated with DRS. Once you check it, then go to vSphere DRS. Now, guys, DRS is not a high availability cluster. DRS is a resource management cluster. Okay, and here it does three important tasks in resource management. The first thing, it does initial placement. Okay, and the second thing it does is load balancing, and the third is distributed power management. Okay, now that initial placement and load balancing would depend on the automation level which I select. There are three automation levels here. If I set the automation level to manual, then what DRS is going to do, during the initial placement, it will give you suggestions. You as an administrator, you need to apply those suggestions manually. Now for load balancing also, it gives you suggestions. You need to apply suggestions for load balancing. Now DRS, in order to load balance the cluster, it is going to migrate virtual machines from one host to another host. Okay, so that migration and initial placement of the virtual machines is done manually by you as an administrator, and DRS, if you set the automation level to manual, it is only going to give you recommendations. If you set the automation level to partially automated, then initial placement is done automatically. It doesn't give you any suggestions. However, the load balancing, the migration suggestions are given by vCenter, and you need to apply those recommendations as an administrator. If you set the automation level to fully automated, then initial placement is also done automatically, as well as the migration of virtual machines from one host to another is also done automatically. Now, all these three things will depend on the migration threshold. The default setting is that the migration threshold is at level 3 or the priority 3. Now, here, if it is set to priority 3, then it will apply the recommendations 1, 2, and 3. If you read this description, now vCenter will apply recommendations that promise at least good improvement to the cluster's load balance. That means if it finds fit that if I migrate this virtual machine from one host to another host, there will be good improvement in the cluster's load balance, then only it will apply the recommendations, if not no. If I move to the right-hand side, then DRS algorithm is going to calculate the availability of resources and the resource requirement a little bit aggressively, and here it will apply recommendations, even a moderate improvement to the cluster's load balance. If you move to the totally right-hand side, it is totally aggressive. Even the slightest improvement to the cluster's load balance, DRS is going to apply the recommendations. Okay. Now, first, let me place it to manual and aggressive, and I'll show you how DRS is going to do those automation levels and those initial placement and migrations automatically. We'll see that in a moment. Let me go to DRS groups. We discussed in DRS that there are certain DRS settings like affinity rules. I can create virtual machine DRS groups. I can also create host DRS group. How to create them? Just click on Add. You need to give a name to the virtual machine DRS group. Let us say that VM DRS group A. In this way, you can create a group. Okay. And here are the virtual machines which you need to select and just move to the right hand side. Then this virtual machine will be a part of VMDRS group. So this is how we create VMDRS group. The same way I can create host DRS group by clicking on host. I can give a name that it's a host DRS group 1, and if you have list of hosts, you can just select list of hosts and move to the right hand side, and then they become a part of host DRS groups. So in this way we can create host DRS groups. Then comes the rules, guys. Here in DRS settings we have affinity rules for virtual machines, and the second type of rule is virtual machines to host affinity rules. So that rules can be configured here. If I click on add, I can give a name to that rule, and if I keep virtual machines together, then this is an affinity rule. If I drop down separate virtual machines, this is an anti-affinity rule. However, if you want to configure virtual machines to host affinity rules, then you need to select virtual machines to host. And here you need to mention which is the group of virtual machines which are to be run on which group of hosts. Okay. So this is how we configure our DRS settings. Depends on your infrastructure. However, DRS settings are used in very large infrastructures. Fine. Normally we don't use in small and medium infrastructures, but however, we can definitely use this. For example, if you come across issues like where you want to place two virtual machines always on the same host, where you want to place virtual machines on different hosts. I gave you the scenarios the other day, and you can also configure what is a required rule or a preferred rule. I also explained you the scenarios the other day. So this is how you configure rules, and then comes the virtual machine options. Now this is something to do with automation level. Fine. The automation level is default automation level. Fine. Whatever is configured on DRS. For example, here on DRS, the automation level is manual. That's the reason why all the virtual machines are set to be at manual. However, for a specific virtual machine, you can override the automation level and change it. This is VPM, guys, power management. I told you this is not used in production environment. Okay, if you want to use VPM, then your servers should have the technologies like ILO, IPMI, or WIC on LAN, because DPM is going to use these technologies in order to power on the ESXi ports whenever required. So the host options, again, this is something to do with power management. EVC is common for DRS and HA. So these are the settings of DRS. Once I click on OK, then this host is also a DRS. Then this cluster is also a DRS cluster. Now, let us see DRS in action. What DRS does, guys? It does initial placement, okay, and load balancing. And I've set the DRS level to manual. So when I power on this virtual machine, if you see this, it will give me a suggestion. Right now it is on 1.20. If I power on this, now DRS is giving me a suggestion to power on this virtual machine on 1.20, the initial placement. This is how DRS gives you suggestions. You as an administrator, you apply the suggestions by going to power on. The same way, I can power on virtual machines randomly, and DRS is going to calculate the availability of resources, the resources required for this virtual machine, and will place the virtual machine on the right host. Right now it is on 1.30. If I click on it, okay, the priority 4 and priority 5. 4 means moderate, 5 means slight. So better to power it on 1.30 itself, power on. In this way, once I power on virtual machines, DRS is going to give me suggestions. Now, right now, this virtual machine, I see this, where is this virtual machine? ESXi Tarek. It's on 1.30. If you see the recommendation, it's saying place it on 1.20. Okay. Why? Because it is better to place it on 20 for load balancing maybe. So I'll power it on from 1.20. Though it is on 1.30, but it is getting placed on 1.20 and it is getting powered on. So this is what is initial placement. Okay. So when it comes to manual configuration, even load balancing is done manually. You need to click on production, then go to DRS settings. Here, once you run this DRS, If there are any recommendations, it will give you the recommendations to migrate virtual machines from one host to another host. You can apply those recommendations. So DRS did not give me any recommendations for migrations. Okay. So let me change the settings from manual to partial. In partial, the initial placement is done automatically, and the load balancing, it gives you suggestions. So I've changed the automation level to partially automated. Now once I power on the virtual machine, it will not give me any options. It will not give me any suggestions. It will power on the virtual machine automatically. See guys, it did not give me any suggestions. It is placing the virtual machine on the right host and powering it on. Okay. Now, let me go to DRS now and run DRS. If there are any suggestions, it will give me suggestions. Right now, it gave me two suggestions to migrate VC zoom from 30 to 20. Why? The reason is to balance average CPU loads, and it wants to migrate DC zoom from 30 to 20, balance average CPU loads. So this is how DRS gives you suggestions. If you place it on manual and partially automated for migrations, if you click on apply recommendations, then these two virtual machines will get migrated from one host to another host. So let me change the DRS setting from partial automation to fully automatic. If I change the DRS settings from partial to fully automated, then the initial placement is also done automatically. Even the migrations are also done automatically. It will not give me any suggestions. Okay, it is going to load balance automatically, as well as initial placement is also done automatically. So this is how DRS functions, guys. This is how we are seeing DRS in action. Okay, both the virtual machines are getting migrated. You can go into the summary, and you can also look for the load balance right now. There is slight imbalance of load on your cluster. All right. However, as I've placed it to automated, fully automated, so within some time it will migrate few virtual machines from here and there, and we'll see that there is proper load and there is proper balance of load in your cluster. Okay. Now it is migrating online VC chip. Fine. Right. So this migrations will occur automatically, and initial placement is also done automatically if you place the DRS automation level to fully automated. Clear, guys? This is how DRS functions. Fine. Any questions on DRS, guys? Before I move ahead for fault tolerance practical. Any questions on DRS? Any questions on DRS, guys? Did you understand the concept? Pardon? Okay. Now let me show you FT. Guys, if you remember, FT, fault tolerance, provides zero downtime for your applications in the event of unplanned downtime. That means if your host fails suddenly, then your virtual machine will not fail. Why? Because a secondary virtual machine will take over as primary. We have discussed this. For that, I have created a virtual machine called FT test. Okay. Now let us say this virtual machine is running an important application, and you want to have zero downtime for the application, even in the event of unplanned downtime. So what do I need to do? I need to right click this virtual machine, go to fault tolerance, and turn on fault tolerance. Okay. So once I turn on fault tolerance, immediately a secondary virtual machine will be created on some other ESXi host. If I show you right now, this virtual machine is on 1.30. When I turn on fault tolerance, okay, it is giving me a message that the DRS automation level for this virtual machine will be disabled. Why it is getting disabled is because this will become the primary machine, and the secondary machine will be created on some other ESXi host. And these two virtual machines will be in lockstep mode, and there will be a continuous fault tolerance logging traffic from this virtual machine to the other virtual machine, which is the secondary virtual machine, which is getting created on some other ESXi host. And the second thing, what happens to this virtual machine is that right now the memory being used by this virtual machine or configured memory is 4 GB RAM. Now this entire 4 GB would be reserved to this virtual machine until the fault tolerance is turned off. So fault tolerance virtual machines whatever the memory you configured would be reserved for this. So do you want to turn on fault tolerance? Say yes. Now in the details, in the recent task, you're seeing that configuring primary VM for fault tolerance. Okay. And it is creating a secondary VM for it. Okay. It is copying the virtual machine configuration so that a secondary VM can be created. And the secondary VM would be created on 1.20. See guys, you have the secondary location, it is on 1.20. It is not protected because virtual machine is not running. If you have observed, the color of the virtual machine icon has changed from light blue to dark blue right now. So it is on 1.30. So let me show you the primary and secondary machine. On 1.30, I have the primary machine. If I go to the virtual machines, you'll be able to see this machine, FT test, which is the primary. If I go to 1.20 and go to the virtual machines, you can find the virtual machine FT test, and in the bracket it will be mentioned as secondary. You have seen this? So secondary machine has been created on 1.20. Now, the next step involved is to power on this virtual machine. And then enable fault tolerance on it. Alright, now this FT test is running guys and it is protected. The secondary location is 1.20, fine. Now what happens is that this 1.30 fails, then immediately 1.20 will be acting as a primary machine. I can test it without shutting down my 1.30. Right click the virtual machine. If I go to fault tolerance, I have an option of test failover. Then what happens is that once I click on test failover, guys, where is the secondary right now? 1.20. The secondary would become primary, guys, if I test failover. And what will happen is that the secondary would be created on 1.30. I'm clicking on test failover. Once I click on test failover, this is saying that not protected with these variations. See guys, immediately when I test failover, the primary is 1.20. Primary was on 1.30. Now the secondary became primary here. Now immediately a secondary will be created on 1.30. In a moment you'll be able to see that. Guys, now it is protected. We have seen that 1.30, the secondary has been on 1.30. Fine. So this is how FT functions. All right. And when it comes to HA, guys, you see this right now. The balance is good. It's showing me in green color. Fine. Load is balanced. So DRS was able to balance the load properly. Fine. Now, guys, HA, I'll show you on virtual ESXi. Why? Because it will ask for, in order to see HA in action, I need to reboot ESXi. Suppose if I reboot 1.20, then the other virtual machines which are running on it will get affected. You can also do that, but a lot of things has to be considered. Virtual machines will go down. There might be some people practicing on the servers. So let me show you on virtual ESXi. I've created one virtual machine, which is cheap. Online ESXi cheap. Let me power on other ESXi here. What is the IP address of this Prabhakar?
10.83.0.40.
10.83.0.40. Okay.
On 30 machine only, na? On 30 host.
Yeah, irrespective, or because it is a part of cluster, it may be powered on from 1.30 or
Oh,
1.20.
okay. Okay.
Right now it is on 1.30, but it may get powered on later on 1.20 as well. IP address is not going to get changed. Everything would be the same. Only thing is that it may get powered on from anywhere. Because it is a part of DRS cluster.
Okay.
Question. You know, when we install the ESXi, the furthest we go is, you know, when we power on the machine, it goes to the screen, and then what's beyond it? Because it doesn't give any other options beyond it, right? Do we need to install the OS on it, or?
You're talking about ESXi getting installed on the physical server?
Yeah, ESXi getting installed. Like you booted this ESXi Mujib. This machine.
No, this is running on inside a virtual machine. Okay, fine.
Yeah, this is what we did, right, for the first lab.
Yes, absolutely. Now you can't do anything on this directly connected to it. You need to get connected through vSphere client. Okay. So once this is powered on, an IP has been assigned to it, right? So using that IP, you need to use vSphere client. For all the management guys, you need to use vSphere client or web client. Without that, you cannot do anything directly connected to any ESXi host. Even if you sit directly in front of it, you'll not be able to do anything. Because all the management is done only through vSphere client or web client. Clear?
So once you connect to it with the vSphere client, what options, what extra options does it give you?
Yeah, you can create a virtual machine on it. Okay, you can create snapshots.
It's like we work normally.
Yeah, normally. As we're working on this vSphere client right now, okay, connected to vCenter server or getting connected to this 1.30, it appears the same way, you manage it. Right click, create a virtual machine, and the remaining is absolutely the same, no difference.
Okay.
Fine?
Alright. Makes sense.
BT, it's .20 Muzim, 10.83.0.20.
Okay, the other one.
IP. IP.
83.20, right?
Yes. The host 1, so 20. The host 2 is that 40.
Okay, 20 and 40. Fine.
Yes.
Yes, this is 20. So let me add this and show you what happens. Okay. Note 83.0.20. The password is the same, right? Did you give any other password? The same.
No. Same password.
Okay. So I have this virtual machine, my virtual ESXi connected and part of my cluster. Okay, let me go to Fine. Let me add this host as well. Add host convert it to 3.0.40, which okay, we have it here. Have any work? You require online?
Sorry, Mujib, it's
Can we continue tomorrow, guys?
yeah, it's 11 in the night here, Mujib.
Okay, we'll continue tomorrow then. Fine. Right. I'll show you the HA in action tomorrow, and yes, it would be from 8:45 a.m. Indian Standard Time till 11:50 a.m. Indian Standard Time, the WebEx session. Okay. Please make a note of it. However, the servers will be available for you to practice from 8:30 a.m. onwards. Someone wants to practice, they can continue with their practice because the servers are on, and you can continue with the practice there. Yeah.
Okay. How long are the servers on tonight?
It will be on till 9:30, 10.
All right. What's the time now?
It's almost 6:15.
All right.
Fine.
All right.
All right, guys. Catch you tomorrow. Fine. We'll continue from there. All right. Thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you, Zin. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hmm.